State of the Sun Devils with Jeremy Schnell, Jesse Morrison, and Mitch Bareldes, an Arizona Sports podcast.
Hello and welcome into another edition of State of the Sun Devils alongside Damon Allred and Jesse Morrison. I'm Jeremy Schnell. Damon, thank you for filling in for Mitch today. We're going to hear from Mitch in a little bit because this is an emergency version of State of the Sun Devils. Jesse, tell me why.
Because Sam Leavitt has been named starting quarterback for Arizona State football.
You like when I put you on the spot like that?
No, I don't
Okay.
Actually. It's like one of my least favorite things that you do.
That's why I do it.
You're supposed to set up, I like to keep as the driver of the show.
But here's what I like to keep you on your toes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's important to me.
Okay.
So Sam Leavitt has been named the starting quarterback. We thought this was going to come on Saturday, Damon. We went to practice on Saturday. We sat in the 100-degree heat.
Yeah.
We sat there. We watched the scrimmage. First of all, before we get into what we are going to see from Sam Leavitt this season and what our thoughts are moving forward with Sam Leavitt as the starting quarterback for the Wyoming game, I want to get your thoughts from what you saw on Saturday at practice.
Yeah, so you and I were hand tracking the passing stats throughout the night, and we found it to be a little bit of a disparity there.
Yeah, it was definitely the completion.
A little bit.
The completion percentage was definitely in favor of Sam Leavitt.
Yeah, I'll break it down a little bit. So Sam started the day what appeared to be 9 for 12 with 2 touchdowns, one to Jordan Tyson and one to Malik McLean. He ended up finishing the day 10 for 16 or so. But then on the other side, Jeff Sims was 1 for 10 and had a ball go through 2 different defenders' hands and had a ball hit the upright on a Hail Mary attempt. So the difference was clear Saturday night, and I think we were expecting to hear from Kenny that, Leavitt would be the guy. We finally got it today, and it's nice for the team to have that down and nice for, I think, just the whole Sun Devil culture to be able to rally behind this one starting quarterback now.
Yeah, and Jesse, when you've been to practice, the couple times that you've went as well, I think what we have all seen collectively is that there's a big gap between where Leavitt is and where the other quarterbacks may be.
Yeah, I think at times there hasn't been, but from Saturday's practice, from the stats that Damon tracked, definitely Leavitt's job. After that, I think that solidified things. There were some times where I thought Jeff Sims looked good and Trenton Bourguet looked better than the both of them.
Trenton Bourguet looked pretty good on Saturday. He had a couple turnovers, but he looked pretty good.
Yeah, and I think that was the big thing with this decision for Kenny is that Sam Leavitt doesn't really turn the ball over. He said he tracked like 300 plays or something, and there were 2 interceptions, which he said is like 5 games. So
nutty.
So that would, that shows that 2 interceptions in 5 games, like you're going to take that as a football team. And I think that it's a big deal for them to not turn the ball over. I mean, it's a big deal for any football team to not turn the ball over. And Sam provides that. Not sure the other 2 guys do as much, especially as we've seen with the Trenton interceptions on the throws outside the numbers. And then Jeff's just, he's thrown a lot of picks, just a lot of picks.
What Kenny Dillingham said after practice today, you were there, Damon. He said that he's confident in all 3 guys to go out there and start a game. What are your thoughts on what he said there?
Yeah, he said he feels comfortable that given the supporting cast around the quarterback position, that he feels like the team can come up with 3 solid game plans to fit each of the quarterbacks. And I think that makes sense. I think we saw at the scrimmage on Saturday that when each quarterback was out there, it looked definitively different. And like when Bourguet was out there, it was strictly 5 yards downfield at the most on throws most of the time. With Sims, there's a lot more dual threat plays called. But with Leavitt, it feels like the entire playbook is opened up, and that's something that Sam has talked to me a little bit about through fall camp, is just that it feels like the whole playbook is wide open to him and that they're continuing to add stuff to that every single day as well.
And Jesse, when you look at a quarterback, a couple things you want to know. You want to know if they turn the ball over. You want to know how they run the offense, and you want to know how much of a leader they are, or what their leadership is like. And what Kenny said today is that he sees a little bit of Bo Nix in Sam Leavitt.
Yeah, he said that, Bo started out as kind of, he would yell at his teammates a lot as a leader, and he had to, bottle that in a bit and, lead more with like saying the same thing, but just not in a yelling tone. Like if there's a bad route or something like that, to run down the field and be like, hey, do it this way, and instead of, hey, do it this way. And so he said that Sam has gone kind of from that, what he saw with Bo Nix, to more of a, like a calmer leader. And I think that's another reason, again, why Sam is the starter here, because I'm guessing that Jeff has that down, that kind of leadership style down, because he's been a starting quarterback in college for as long as he has.
He's like just a grown adult man who's like 23 years old as well, as opposed to Leavitt, who's a redshirt freshman. And Marcus Arroyo, the offensive coordinator, got into why he thinks Leavitt is so mature, even for a redshirt freshman who only played 4 games last year. I think that it's going to be fun to watch Leavitt grow and develop and become the fully seasoned college quarterback that he could be a year or two down the line if he sticks around in the system.
Yeah, and I think that something that we're going to have to keep in mind this year is that he's a redshirt freshman. He played a little bit last year at Michigan State, but there's going to be some growing pains here. It's not going to be a perfect, he's not going to be perfect. Nobody is perfect, but he's going to make rookie mistakes basically this year. And so that's something like I don't want to see people like, oh, they got to go to Sims, they got to go to Bourguet just because of, a couple mistakes here and there. I think you ride it out for a little bit longer than maybe you would have if it's an Emory Jones starting a couple years ago. He's a veteran guy that was making mistakes, and you move on to a younger guy. With this one, I think you kind of let him, with Sam, go through the motions a little bit more and learn how to be a college quarterback, even if he struggles a little bit.
Now over to the other 2 quarterbacks, guys, real quick. Obviously, I think we're going to see one, maybe even 2 of them at some point this season.
Hope not, but it's just in a blowout. That would be great.
It's just how things go.
Yeah.
But from what we've seen and what we saw on Saturday, Damon, I think the second best quarterback on this team has to be Trenton Bourguet. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
100%, especially if you're looking at QB2 as a position where you want to have reliability and insurance policy. Like you look at what the Cardinals did last year with Colt McCoy. Like having a reliable option as your QB2 can really stabilize your team if things start to go poorly, where, Sam Leavitt tears his ACL or something like that. Knock on wood that it doesn't happen, of course. But if something like that has to happen, you want the more reliable outlet of quarterback play, and I think that that's what Bourguet gives you.
Here's the issue, though, with that, is that Kenny said that Sims is the backup quarterback, so I just don't think that's going to happen.
I know, but that's right now. Things can happen in practice either this week, next week, or 4 weeks down the line where that changes Kenny's mind.
Sure, but we've heard Kenny say that they have 2 guys on this roster that could play on Sundays, and one of them was Jeff Sims, and I think that he believes in Jeff Sims a lot more than maybe some of us do. And so I think it would go to Jeff Sims, which I think is honestly unfortunate, because I think Trenton deserves to be the backup QB here. He's started a lot of games for ASU. He's been here since 2019. This is his 6th season. He's really stuck around through, the Herm era, the Sean Aguano short era, and then now the Kenny era. So I think he deserves to be the number 2, but I think Kenny believes in Jeff Sims a little bit more than him. And that's just something that is the reality, and I think Sims would start if there's an injury to Leavitt. Now, that doesn't mean that Bourguet won't end up playing, because Sims could struggle. Kenny could be like, we got to go to Trenton here. But all of these are super hypotheticals, because we don't know if Leavitt's going to get hurt.
Right.
We don't know if they're going to be in any blowout games.
Even if he struggles, there's a ton of different scenarios that can happen. But we have to talk about it, because this is the QB room that ASU has, and we've seen over the past 4 or 5 seasons that they've had to go through a few quarterbacks, Jesse.
Yeah, we have, and
College quarterbacks struggle sometimes.
Yeah.
It happens.
But last year, a lot of it was injuries and an offensive line that was decimated and led to quarterback injuries. So hopefully that's not the case this year, and hopefully you can get 12 games started by Leavitt.
And Damon, before I get to you, one thing that we will note is we are going to get into our season preview. That's going to be next week. So just quarterback strictly stuff today, and we'll get around Sun Devil Athletics, some updates for everyone as well on things happening in Tempe right now. But Damon, what were you going to say there?
Yeah, I think part of the thing with Sims being the QB2 for now, and Kenny did say as things continue that could change. I have a lot of trust in Trenton. But with Sims being QB2 right now, getting the reps with the twos, I think gives Kenny a chance to see if Sims can eventually hit the higher ceiling that Kenny believes he has. We'll see if that ever happens, but the floor is just so far further below Leavitt's floor right now that's the difference. And then also just with injuries and how much these quarterbacks are able to be protected. We've already seen one of the linemen who was expected to be a starting lineman, Jalen Clem, was dealing with an injury earlier in camp. We're not sure how long he's going to be out, but that's one that I think could play into it as well. Leavitt's mobility is going to help for sure.
And Sims, for that matter, if he ever gets into the game.
Mobility as well.
And Jesse, we're going to hear from Mitch in just a second. We're going to get his thoughts on this move for ASU. Any final thoughts from you, though, on this announcement that Sam Leavitt will start against Wyoming?
I just hope it's the start for ASU of some stability. Obviously there's NIL, transfer portal, all that stuff going on, but hopefully, ASU will finally have a 4-year starter or, a 3-year starter at least, which hasn't happened since. I mean, they had the 3-year starter with Jaden, but one of those seasons was 4 games. The first since Manny Wilkins was here in 2018 of like a really consistent, starting quarterback that's been, that is going to be the starter.
Well, so they knew that Taylor was going to be the starter before Bercovici. Then they knew that Bercovici was going to be the starter, and then they knew that Manny was going to be the starter. So they knew those 3. And then from there, it just kind of became a carousel.
Yeah, it felt like...
Well, and obviously Jaden was the 3-year gap.
Even the Jaden year, it was a QB competition in camp as well between him and Dylan Sterling Cole. So
and he won it outright as a true freshman.
for sure. But
and then he struggled a little bit his second year.
Yeah, and it's just felt, and his third year, it's just kind of felt like a QB competition for half a decade. Yeah.
Since the 2020s started.
Real quick, before we get to around Sun Devil Athletics, we're going to check in with Mitch from remotely. He recorded a little video for everyone to see on his thoughts on Sam Leavitt being the starter for Week 1 against Wyoming.
So, big news out of Arizona State football today. Sam Leavitt has officially been named the starting quarterback. And Jeremy asked me for my immediate reaction. This is that. But I'm not going to say we already knew that this was the case, but it felt like it was trending in this way ever since Jaden Rashada transferred to Georgia. And I don't want to disrespect Jeff Sims in this regard. I don't want to disrespect Trenton Bourguet because both of them were very much a part of this quarterback push. But as far as just the immeasurables or just the aspects that separate one quarterback from another, Sam was the one that was far and ahead, the one that I personally felt most comfortable with to be able to get ASU back in good contention, especially heading into a new conference. He's got the agility, he's got the arm strength, and most of all, he hasn't made a lot of stupid mistakes so far in training camp. So I imagine that this is going to translate well. Kenny said definitively that he's going to be the starting quarterback, I should say. Whether that's beyond Week 1, that's probably the case. He didn't specifically say Week 1, so I imagine that this is going to be the permanent choice. And I'm looking forward to what Sam can do in an offense that is going to look very different than what we saw last year as well.
Jesse, take us around Sun Devil Athletics. Tell me what's happening post-Olympic break.
We have sports
Woo!
at ASU. It started.
Hey, shout out to all the Olympians also too.
Yes.
That just ended last week. What a great Olympic Games that was in Paris.
For the Sun Devils especially.
Yes.
But yeah, sports are back at ASU. Soccer has started. They tied NAU on Friday.
Did you see that goal yesterday? She flicked it over someone's head and then volleyed it off one-timer.
Yeah, that was one of 6 goals that ASU had yesterday as they beat Wagner. So they are 1-0-1, or I don't know how. Jeremy, soccer guy, can you do
The final thing is the draw.
Yes.
101.
Yes, 1-0-1.
Zoe
yes,
101.
correct. Okay. And then
The 101 freeway.
There we go.
Yeah.
here's the bigger one. I don't remember the last time that an ASU team has been ranked in a poll. Probably the swim team actually last year. But volleyball is number 17 in the poll to start the season, going into a it's going to be a tough Big 12 for them.
Shout out JJ.
But it's also, they are obviously getting national attention, which they did not get last year until late in the season. And then I'm probably going to butcher this name, and I apologize. Josele Ballester, he won the U.S. Amateur in golf, and he is a Sun Devil golfer. So a lot of good stuff happening for ASU right now. Hopefully football season is good as well. But yeah, good start to the athletic calendar for the Sun Devils.
Good start to the Big 12 era.
That's true. Yeah. Big 12 era starts next week for football, guys. Can you believe that?
here.
It's here.
It's kinda
We're 1
here.
week away. And week 0 is this weekend.
There's like 6 college football games, including one in Dublin between
Go Noles.
Kenny Dillingham's former school that he coached at FSU.
And that he offered Leavitt from.
Yep, and and Jeff Sims' former school, Georgia Tech. They're playing in Dublin, Ireland.
What are the odds?
Go Knowles.
Little Jeff Sims, Sam Leavitt.
Jeremy's mom went there,
Battle.
by the way.
That's going to do it for this edition of State of the Sun Devils. Thanks to Mitch Vareldas for joining us remotely on his vacation. We really appreciate him taking the time to give us his thoughts on this QB competition finally coming to an end for week 1. Thanks to Jesse Morrison and Damon Allred for joining me as well. You can find us on all forms of social media at AZ Sports Devils, including Threads, Jesse.
We have Threads?
Yeah, we do, actually. Isn't that crazy? Threads is doing really well in terms of engagement right now.
Is it?
Actually.
Yeah. When every single thread I see is like some weird question that's posed. I don't see anything serious ever being posted on that.
Anyway, go check us out on Threads, I guess.
We've not posted one thing on Threads.
It's a great
so.
endorsement of everybody going to follow us. You
Yeah.
can find us, almost every episode we do here in this room is on YouTube. You can find us on the Arizona Sports YouTube channel. But for now, for Jesse Morrison and Damon Allred, I'm Jeremy Schnell. We'll talk to you next week.